Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhuvah Swaha Tatsavitrvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayat Asto Ma Satgamya Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahnavavtu Sahnavbhunaktu Saviryam Karvavahi Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti 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 Om. So chapter 18, the name of this chapter is Moksha Sanyas Yoga. So this chapter starts with Arjun's question. He says, I wish to know the nature of renunciation and sacrifice and the difference between the two, O Lord Krishna. So renunciation means sannyasa and sacrifice means tyaga. So these are the two words they have been used by Lord Krishna over and over again throughout Bhagavad Gita. So he says, I would like to know exactly what is sannyas is, what tyaga is. So Lord Krishna said, the sages define renunciation or sannyas as abstaining from all desire prompted work. Okay, so no personal desire at all. That's a sannyas. The wise define sacrifice or relinquishment, tyag, as abandoning all attachment to the fruits of the work. So tyag means you are not concerned about the fruit. That doesn't mean that you don't do the work properly, but fruit of the work. So in other words, tyagi is equivalent to a karam yogi. Okay, so tyag is that you do the work, but the fruit of the work you are not attached to. That's a karam yogi. And the difference between this and a sannyas is higher level. You don't even have the desire. So in order to be a sannyasi, you got to be tyagi first. So sannyasi is like a karam sannyasi. See, tyagi is defined in chapter 3. Sannyasi is defined in chapter 5. Karam sannyasi. That I'm not even doing it. So sannyasi identifies with the Atma, the soul. No desire. Atma doesn't have any desire. Who has a desire? Mind has the desires. And I am not the mind. So that's why he said, all desire prompted work, abstaining from it. That's a sannyas. So to be a sannyasi is a very high level. If you think that we're going to just become a sannyasi, no. If you have not learned how to get rid of the selfishness in you, you cannot become a sannyasi. Even if you think that I want to be a sannyasi, that's a desire. So in the true sense, you are not a sannyasi. Let me read it again. The sages define renunciation or sannyas as abstaining from all desire prompted work. The wise define sacrifice or tyag as abandoning all attachment to the fruits of the work. Okay, attachment is a mental attachment over here. Okay, then he says, some philosophers say that all work is full of faults and should be given up, while others say that acts of sacrifice, charity, and austerity should not be abandoned. So he's talking about like a different ways people think. Some people say, don't do anything because there's always a fault. But others say, no, sacrifice, charity, austerity should not be abandoned. In Sanskrit, the terms are yajna, dan, and tap. Okay, so sacrifice really means you are praying. The prayers are called sacrifice, yajna. Charity is the dan, and tap is the austerity. O Arjun, listen to my conclusion. So first he's talking about other philosophers. Now Lord Krishna says, listen to my conclusion about sacrifice, and sacrifices of three types, he says. So yajna is of three types. Again, sattvic, rajasic, and tamasic. Three types. Acts of service, charity and austerity should not be abandoned, but should be performed because the service, charity, and austerity are the purifiers of the wise. So he says these three, yajna, dan, and tapa, they should be, they even the wise people get further purified with these three kind of actions. Even these obligatory works should be performed without attachment to the fruits. This is my definite supreme advice, O Arjun. So when we pray, he says the best is no attachment to the fruit. When you give the charity, also no attachment to the fruit. When you do the tapasya also, which he mentioned in the last chapter, you remember the tap? He mentioned the tap we do at the physical level, at the mental level, at the verbal level. He says they should be done, all of this should be done without considering the fruits in the mind. Giving up one's duty is not proper. The abandonment of any obligatory work is due to delusion and is declared to be a mode of ignorance. So it's a tamasic tapa if we are not doing what we are supposed to do. So out of laziness, we are not doing what we are supposed to do. He says that's tamasic. Don't do that. One who abandons a duty merely because it's difficult or because of fear of bodily affliction does not gain any benefit of sacrifice by performing such a sacrifice and is the mode of passion. So that's a rajasic. You are attached to your bodily comfort. So he says that's a lower level. Obligatory work performed as duty, renouncing all attachment to the fruit, is alone to be regarded as sacrifice in the mode of goodness, sattvic. Okay, so whatever duties are we should do, and what we need to renounce is the fruit of the actions. Okay, so detachment from the fruit of the action, that is a tap. One who neither hates a disagreeable work nor is attached to an agreeable work is considered a renunciant, imbued with the mode of goodness, intelligent, and free from all doubts about the Supreme Being. So now he is defining a tyagi. So tyagi is one who neither hates a disagreeable work. So something which you don't like, but it's your duty to do it, nor is attached to agreeable work, is a tyagi, he says. Imbued with the mode of goodness, satvikta, intelligent and free from all doubts about the supreme beings, that there's no sanshaya about the God. Human beings cannot completely abstain from work. That is a fact. As human beings, we learned that in the Karma Yoga chapter, that we are in a Karma Yoni. The species who are supposed to do the Karma. We have the freedom to do or not to do. Okay, this is the power God has given it to us. So that's why he said human beings cannot completely abstain from work. Therefore, one who completely renounces attachment to the fruits of all work is considered a renunciant. a tyagi. Okay, so tyagi doesn't mean that don't do the work. Definitely do the work, but do not stay attached to the fruit of your actions. The threefold fruit of works, desirable, undesirable, and mixed, accrues after death to one who is not a tyagi, but never to a tyagi. See, over here is the key, how we are going to cut these bonds of karmas. Otherwise, good karmas, they will tie us. Bad karmas, they will tie us. Mixed karmas also will tie us. So he says, they keep on accruing. Accruing means they are in the storehouse of our karmas, which is called as sanchit karma. He says, but never to a tyagi. So tyagi means who's not attached to the fruits of the actions. So then we are not creating that bond thicker and thicker. Learn from me, O Arjun, the five causes as described in the Sankhya doctrine for the accomplishment of all actions. So now he is giving us a little insight into how we are not, how we can just make sure that we are not attached to the fruit. Because the fruit is not in our hand. 100% of the fruit is never in our hand. So once we understand this technique, then we are not attached. So he says, learn from me, O Arjun, the five causes as described in the Sankhya doctrine for the accomplishment of all actions. They are the physical body, the modes of material nature, the 11 organs of perception and actions, the various life forces, and the fifth is the presiding deities of the 11 organs. The way he has described it kind of confusing, because this is what we think we are. I want you to go into this, the seat of karma, the doer, the instrument, and the life forces means, see, if you want to go back to the Sanskrit, I think it is more clear than this English ones. See, panch etani, panch means five. Five, karan means the reason. So he says there are five reasons for a success or a failure to any action. So you cannot take a full credit or you cannot take a full blame of any outcome. That's how we can stay detached from the fruit of the action. The first one is adhishthanam. See in verse number 14, adhishthanam. That is what he called it, a seat of karma. So that means where the karma is being performed, the place. Adhishthanam means the place. Karta means who's doing it. Karan means the instruments. Okay, the instruments which you are using. And then cheshta means the effort. And dev means the providence. Or you can call it the God's forces also, or the destiny also. Okay, so because destiny is not in our hands right now, it's in the hands of God. So that's why we call it a providence also. So any action, big or small, successful, where we are successful or we are failure, the outcome is dependent upon these five. Okay, see, I always like to give this example of a farmer growing oranges in Florida. So the place Adhishthanam is Florida. So farmer cannot take the credit for that. Karta, that is the farmer himself. Karan, the instruments which he has to grow the oranges over there. Whether to make the ground, or whether to pluck the fruit, or whether to make sure the irrigation is done, or the fertilizers have been put, all those instruments. And Cheshtha, the life force behind him who's making him work, the energy. And then Dev is, when the crop is ready, it could be a hailstorm, there could be a tsunami, but there could be a beautiful weather also. That's not in his hands. So out of 5, only one thing is in his hands. And which one is that? The karta, the doer. The doer. Okay. So he can take 1/5 of the credit or 1/5 of the blame. Because if he doesn't even do anything, or if he works very hard, he can say that I worked very hard. But he cannot take 100% of the credit or the blame. So when we think like this, then we are not attached to the fruit. We just do everything the best we can and sit back. Okay. So these are the 5 causes of whatever action, whether right or wrong, one performs by thought, word, and deed. So it's not only the physical actions alone. Our thoughts are also actions. The words we speak, they are the actions too. Therefore, the one who considers one's body or the spirit as the sole doer do not understand due to imperfect knowledge. Okay, so if we think that I did it or I could not do enough, he says that's an imperfect knowledge, taking 100% blame and 100% credit. One who is free from the notion of doership and whose intellect is not polluted by the desire to reap the fruit, even after slaying these people, neither slays nor is bound by the act of killing. Now he is taking our attention back to that war zone where Arjun is standing. The subject, the object, and the knowledge of the object are the threefold driving force to an action. The 11 organs, the action, and the actor, or the modes of material nature, are the 3 components of actions. So he is going into the detail of the karam right now. In order to do any karam, we need the knowledge also. That's why he's starting out. He says there are 3 types of knowledges. But the knowledge can be divided into 3 categories. Knowledge, action, and actor are said to be of 3 types. So not just the knowledge, but the action, the karam. Actor, the person who's doing the karam, are of 3 types. According to Sankhya doctrine, hear duly about these also. So first he talks about the knowledge. He says the knowledge by which one sees one and the same, immutable, undivided divinity in all creatures, such knowledge is in the mode of goodness. So this is a sattvic knowledge. Sattvic knowledge takes us to that level which shows us that we are all one. The sameness, that knowledge. Okay, the knowledge by which one sees one and the same. That Atma in us is the essence and it's the same in all creatures, not just only in human beings, in all creatures. The knowledge by which one sees each individual as different and separate from one another, such knowledge is in the mode of passion, the Rajasic. So Rajasic knowledge tells us we are different. Sattvic knowledge tells us we are all same. And what is the Tamasic knowledge? The irrational, baseless, and worthless knowledge by which one clings to one single effect, such as the body as if it is everything, such knowledge is in the mode of darkness, of ignorance. So tamasic knowledge, you know this much and you think you know it all. That's the tamasic. Okay. Now 3 types of actions, the karam. Obligatory duty performed without likes and dislikes and without selfish motives and attachment to the fruit is in the mode of goodness. So this is a sattvic karma. So if we want to dissect our karma, are we doing sattvic karma or not? We got to do our duties, what we are supposed to do, without likes and dislikes. Sure, certain actions we don't like to do, but still do it because it's my duty, without selfish motive. So selfishness should be thrown out of our personality. And then another thing, no attachment to the fruit. Okay, so we got to look at it. How many actions we do which fall in this category, the sattvic karma. So in other words, we got to know what my duty is, though. See, a lot of people, they are confused what my duty is. We got to have a calmness of our mind so that we can dissect that matter. Then he says in the next one, Rajasic action. Action performed with ego, with a selfish motive, with too much effort is in the mode of passion. So you are not supposed to do it. See, your duties, you will do it without much effort. Over here, you're not supposed to do something, but you're struggling to do it. And selfishness is there. And there's an ego also. That's a Rajasic. And then what is a Tamasic then? Tamasic action is action that is undertaken because of delusion, disregarding consequences, loss, injury to others, as well as one's own ability, is in the mode of ignorance. You are not capable of doing it. You are not even supposed to do it, but you are deluded that you want to do it because others are doing it. And you disregard the consequences also. How much you are hurting and how much you are hurting others. That is a tamasic. Three types of people. The person who is free from attachment is non-egotistic, endowed with resolve and enthusiasm, and unperturbed in success or failure is called good. Good means sattvic over here. So this is a sattvic person. Okay. The person who is impatient, who desires the fruits of work, who is greedy, violent, impure, and affected by joy and sorrow is called passionate Rajasic. And the person who is undisciplined, vulgar, stubborn, wicked, malicious, lazy, depressed, and procrastinating is called Tamasic. Okay, so we can look at it. Sometimes we have a little bit of Sattvikta, little bit of Rajasikta, and some of the Tamsikta also. But by knowing these, we can work on ourselves and get rid of the Tamsik and the Rajasik. See, first we got to know. Okay, very clearly he is telling us what the Tamsik, Rajasik, and the Sattvic nature is. Three types of intellect. See, first he talked about knowledge, then he talked about action, then he talked about the person, now he talked about the intellect. Now hear me explain fully and separately the threefold division of intellect and resolve based on the modes of material nature, O Arjun. O Arjun, that intellect is in the mode of goodness, which understands the path of work and the path of renunciation. That means what to do and what not to do. Right and wrong action, fear and fearlessness, bondage and liberation. So, Sattvic intellect will have a clarity over all these issues. Okay? That intellect is in the mode of passion which cannot distinguish between righteousness, dharam, and unrighteousness, adharam, and right and wrong action, Arjun. So there's a delusion in there, there's a uncertainty in the Rajasic intellect. See, that's why we study scriptures, we go to a guru, so that our intellect is fed properly. There's more clarity. It's not that we are born with a certain intellect and we stay with that intellect throughout life. No. Intellect can be changed, mind can be changed, body can be changed, because it's all part of Prakriti. And we are supposed to make an effort to change it towards better, towards a sattvic. Even if we were born with a rajasic, predominantly rajasic intellect, we can, with the help of a guru, we can make it sattvic. That intellect is in the mode of ignorance, which accepts unrighteousness as righteousness. See, something is grossly wrong, but we think it's right. And thinks everything to be that which is it's not. Oh Arjun. Okay. So something is a dharma and we think that it's a dharma. So that means that intellect is not focusing right. Three types of resolve and the four goals of human life. That resolve or willpower is in the mode of goodness by which one manipulates the functions of the mind, prana, and senses for God realization only. So resolve is that you have made a resolve to do something. We make a resolve and we use our mind and that prana and our senses. That ultimate goal is God realization. You made that resolve. That's a sattvic resolve. That resolve is in the mode of passion by which one cravings for the fruit of work, clings to duty, wealth, and pleasure with great attachment. That's a rajasic. See, the first one is about the moksha, God realization. The second one, rajasic, is the other three: the duty, wealth, and pleasure. And then what is a tamasic resolve? That resolve is the mode of ignorance by which a dull person does not give up sleep, fear, grief, despair, and carelessness. Okay, so that's also a resolve. He says that is a tamasic resolve. So that means when we are sticking with a lower level of Prakriti, we make a resolve, no, this life is difficult. Staying afraid. See, he said, fear, grief, despair, sleep, and carelessness. Our life is just mainly revolving around these negative tendencies. That's a tamasic. And three types of pleasure, because we all do the actions for pleasure. Everybody. They say a little bug all the way to the devatas. For pleasure, they do the actions. So that pleasure can be rajasic, tamasic, or sattvic. The sattvic pleasure is, he says, now hear from you, Arjun, about the threefold pleasure. The pleasure that one enjoys from spiritual practice results in cessation of all sorrows. So we should enjoy meditating also, praying also. The pleasure which we receive from doing these actions, whether it's a yajna or dan or tapa, the pleasure we receive is a sattvic pleasure. The pleasure that appears as poison in the beginning, but is like nectar in the end, comes by the grace of self-knowledge and is in the mode of goodness. So in other words, in the beginning, I don't know why he said self-knowledge. It's not a self-knowledge, it's a sense gratification. That's where it comes from, the Rajasic. That you want to sleep more, feels good, but ultimately it will hurt us. Or you want to just keep on watching TV, ultimately you will feel pretty tired. So in the beginning it gives you pleasure, but the end is not that good. That's Rajasic. You want to keep on eating something sweet, but ultimately end up having a stomach ache or overeating. That's all Rajasic pleasure. Okay. So Sattvic pleasure was which you enjoy from the spiritual practices. Rajasic pleasure is where you are enjoying through the senses, sense gratification. And what is a tamasic pleasure? Sensual pleasure that appear as nectar in the beginning, but become poison in the end in the mode of passion. This is the Rajasic. So sensual pleasures that appear as nectar in the beginning, but become poison in the end are in the mode of passion. But now the tamasic is a pleasure that confuses a person in the beginning and in the end as a result of sleep, laziness, and carelessness is in the mode of ignorance. Okay. So tamasic is in the beginning also painful, but you are deluded, you think it's pleasurable. See, like a gambling. It is a person who can see better will say that, yeah, you are just wasting your money. So in the beginning also, at the end also, there is no pleasure in there, but you think it's pleasurable. Or even drinking, smoking. Somebody who is smoking, it smells bad in the beginning. And in the end, hurting the body, hurting the environment. That's a tamasic. Or drinking also, drinking something which is stale, which smells bad, and ultimately it will harm you too. So that's a tamasic. They fall in the tamasic play. But you think that a person who's doing it, they are not doing it for the pleasure. They are doing for the pleasure. They are driving the pleasure out of tamsikta or out of rajsikta. And the sattvic pleasure is when you meditate, when you go through the spiritual practices. So pleasure is there, but different levels of pleasure. There is no being either on the earth or among the celestial controllers in the heaven who can remain free from these three modes of material nature. So in other words, all of us, if we have taken any kind of a body, we have moved away from that Shuddha Buddha Atma, we will be either in the tamasic level or a rajasic level or a sattvic level or going between these three or a different degrees of these three. Okay, any being. So nobody can say that I'm just above this. When you are above all this, then you have become one with God. The division of human labor into four categories is also based on the qualities inherent in people's nature or their makeup. So division of human labor, that really means those four classes, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. That's what he's talking about. So Lord Krishna is saying that those four classes, according to the aptitude, it's not by birth, it's by our own aptitude. Intellectuals who have serenity, self-control, austerity, purity, patience, honesty, transcendental knowledge, transcendental experience, and belief in God are labeled as intellectuals, Brahmins. So for a Brahman, these qualities are either there or that person is inclined to cultivate these qualities. That is intellectual, Brahman, that class. Okay? And next is Kshatriya, those having the qualities of heroism, vigor, firmness, dexterity, steadfastness in battle. Battle means work, action. Charity and administrative skills are called leaders or protectors, Kshatriyas. So this is a second class. Those who are good at cultivation, cattle rearing, and business, including trade, finance, and industry, are known as businessmen, Vaishyas. Those who are very good in service and labor are classed as workers, Shudras. Okay, so these four classes, when they became very rigid, it became a caste system in India. But these classes exist in every society. Society cannot function without these four different kinds of mental aptitudes. One can attain the highest perfection by devotion to one's natural work. Listen to me how one attains perfection while engaged in one's natural work. So a businessman can also attain moksha. A serviceman can attain moksha. A king can, or a political leader can attain moksha too. And a Brahman or a priest or a teacher can attain moksha too. But what he says is, one attains perfection by worshipping the Supreme Being. That means no matter what you do, when you can offer your work or the fruit of your work to God, then you attain the perfection. So one attains perfection by worshipping the Supreme Being, from whom all beings originate and by whom all this universe is pervaded. So that means when you are doing your work, remembering God. The whole thing, the whole universe, all my actions are for God. And everywhere there is a God, through performance of one's natural duty dedicated to Him. This is a very, very important verse to understand. Because a lot of times we think, no, we have to become a priest or a teacher. This is no, whatever your natural tendency is. Only we need to change the attitude of our mind. Instead of doing it for ourselves, for our own ego, do it for God. That's all. We can sweep the floor for God and attain perfection. And we can recite Gita all day long and become arrogant about it. We will not. That could be a start of the downfall for us. So it is the attitude. One's defective natural work is better than perfect unnatural work, even though it can be well done. One who does the work ordained by one's inherent nature incurs no sin. So in other words, our inherent nature we have cultivated from the past actions. By doing our actions according to our inherent nature, we wash away our vasanas. We are here to wash away the vasanas, not to create more vasanas. One's natural work, even though defective, should not be abandoned because all undertakings are enveloped by defects as fire is covered by smoke or action. So he's talking about every action has a fruit attached to it. So do not start just looking at what kind of actions they are. Just learn the technique of doing the action where you do it for God. The person whose mind is always free from attachment, who has subdued the mind and senses, who is free from desires, attains the supreme perfection of freedom from the bondage of karma by renouncing all attachment to the fruits of work. So again, he is summarizing what he has said earlier. Learn from me briefly, O Arjun, how one who has attained such perfection or the freedom from the bondage of karma attains supreme being, the goal of transcendental knowledge. endowed with purified intellect, subduing the mind with firm resolve, turning away from sound and other objects of the senses, giving up likes and dislikes, living in solitude, eating lightly, controlling the mind, speech, and organs of action, ever absorbed in yoga of meditation, taking refuge in detachment and relinquishing egotism, violence, pride, lust, anger, and proprietorship, one becomes peaceful, free from the notion of I, me, and my, and fit for attaining oneness with the Supreme Being. So these qualities he has mentioned earlier also, in chapter 12 also, in chapter 13 also, chapter 2 also. Again and again he is asking us to purify ourselves by cultivating these qualities. Absorbed in the Supreme Being, the Serene One neither grieves nor desires. Okay. See, grief is always something we thought it was ours and we lost it. That's a grief. Desire is about something we don't have and we want it. So he says, serene one neither grieves nor desire. Because as long as we have a grief and as long as we have a desire, we don't have a serenity of the mind. And if the mind is not serene, we will not know ourselves. We got to work on it. Becoming impartial to all beings, one obtains the highest devotional love for God. Okay, so if we are partial means if we think that this is mine, that person is mine, that person is not mine, then our behavior will change. When the behavior changes, so does our mind. And that's how we keep on collecting the dirt. By devotion, one truly understands what and who I am in essence. Okay, devotion, love for God. Having known me in essence, one immediately merges with me. This is the samadhi he's talking about. That kind of a love that we cannot stay away from him. That kind of a love. See, we all know how to love, but we know how to love only our bodies, our egos, our wealth, our children, our friends. We know how to love. But over here he says, love me in essence. Then we'll merge with him. An enlightened devotee attains the eternal, immutable abode by my grace, even while doing all duties, just by taking refuge in me. How? By dedicating all action to me with a loving devotion. So he is summarizing, then a further summarizing and writing it in one line only. He says that's how you can attain that highest. Mentally offer all actions with love to me. Set me as your supreme goal and sole refuge. Always fix your mind on me and resort to Karam Yoga. You shall overcome all difficulties by my grace when your mind becomes fixed on me. But if you do not listen to me due to ego, you shall not attain moksha or nirvana. If due to ego you think, I shall not fight, your resolve is vain because your own nature will compel you to fight. Because Lord Krishna knew Arjun's nature, Arjun's Swabhav is a Kshatriya. And as a Kshatriya, he is supposed to stand for his country, his people, because they were being attacked by the Duryodhana and the kind. He's supposed to protect people. He says, even if you say that because of your ego, you say you don't want to fight and you run away somewhere, you think you're meditating, but you'll be thinking about the war zone. What's happening there? So physically you may not be fighting, but mentally you are still fighting. Oh Arjun, you're bound by your own nature-born karmic impressions. These are the sanskaras which we talk about. Therefore, you shall do, even against your will, what you do not wish to do out of delusion. The Supreme Lord, abiding as the controller in the inner psyche of all beings, O Arjun, causes them to revolve by his power of Maya, like a puppet mounted on a machine. Seek refuge in the Supreme Lord alone with the loving devotion, O Arjun. By his grace you shall attain supreme peace and eternal abode. Thus I have explained the knowledge that is more secret than the secret. After fully reflecting on this, do as you wish. That's where he is giving him the full freedom. He says, I have explained it to you in detail. Very profound knowledge, but you have the freedom to do what you want to do. Do as you wish. But then again, so good teacher doesn't stop like that. He says, here once again, my most secret supreme word. You are very dear to me, therefore I shall tell you this for your benefit. Fix your mind on me, be devoted to me, offer service to me, bow down to me, and you shall certainly reach me. I promise you, because you are my very dear friend. Setting aside all duties, take refuge in me alone. I shall liberate you from all sins. Do not grieve. This knowledge should never be spoken by you to one who is devoid of austerity, who is without devotion, who does not desire to listen, or who speaks ill of me. Okay? So this is like a little instructions to us also, because sometimes we study something like this and we want to just start preaching to people. So we got to be careful. Whom do we really tell this? Okay. He says, one who shall propagate the supreme secret philosophy, the transcendental knowledge of the Gita, amongst my devotees, shall be performing the highest devotional service to me, and shall certainly come to me. No other person shall do a more pleasing service to me, and no one on the earth shall be more dear to me. So it's good to teach, good to propagate, good to spread the good words around, but be careful. We don't want to force it on people. Basically, that's what he's telling us. Those who study our sacred dialogue shall be performing a holy act of propagation and acquisition of self-knowledge. This is my promise. Whoever even hears this sacred dialogue with faith and without cavil becomes free from sin and attains the higher worlds of those whose actions are pure and virtuous. So teaching is good, reading is also good. Oh Arjuna, did you listen to this with single-minded attention? Has your delusion born of ignorance been completely destroyed? So this is the last verse spoken by Lord Krishna. Now Arjun says, by your grace my delusion is destroyed. I have gained self-knowledge. My confusion with regard to body and spirit is dispelled, and I shall obey your command. The Arjun who didn't want to fight, who was sitting down on the chariot seat with the bow and arrow on the side, but he says, I will do what you're telling me to do. That means doing the duty while keeping you in mind, not the fruit. Sanjay said, so now the scene goes back to the Sanjay and that blind king. Sanjay said, thus I heard this wonderful dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjuna, causing my hair to stand on end. So that means the goosebumps. Because he saw also, he heard also. By the grace of sage Vyasa. You remember sage Vyasa is the one who graced Sanjay. that he could hear and see far away. I heard this most sacred and supreme yoga directly from Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, himself speaking to Arjun before my very eyes of clairvoyance granted by sage voice. O king, by repeated remembrance of this marvelous and sacred dialogue between Lord Krishna and Arjun, I am thrilled at every moment. Recollecting again and again, O king, that marvelous form of Krishna, I am greatly amazed and rejoice over and over again. So he says, I keep thinking about it, that form which I saw. Wherever there will be both Krishna, the Lord of Yoga, or Dharam in the form of the scriptures, and Arjun with the weapons of duty and protection, there will be everlasting prosperity, victory, happiness, and morality. This is my conviction. So last few verses are spoken by Sanjay. So this ends. So you remember the very first verse was spoken by Dhritarashtra. The last verse is spoken by Sanjay. So this whole dialogue is between these two, and then in between we saw Lord Krishna and Arjuna going through the whole philosophy for our benefit. So anybody, any question?
Hershey, I have a question. When you were reading about the three types of resolve,
Mm-hmm.
the tamasic one, it was born out of dullness, and it does not give up fear, sleep, grief, despair, and carelessness. Can you please discuss what it means to give up fear?
Yeah, just being afraid. You just, instead of thinking that God is with me, you can make that kind of a resolve too. But resolve is staying afraid. And as long as we are keeping our mind in the fear, that means we really don't understand God. Because fear, there's no fear to the Atma. Fear is only for the body, our attachments, our possessions, me and mine. So that's why it's tamasic. We are away from that knowledge. We just want to stick to that fear.
But
And resolve that, that resolve is called a tamasic resolve.
yes, but in order to give up fear, it really means you have to increase devotion. Is that?
Yeah, you got to increase knowledge also. You got to increase devotion also. So that means there has to be then the karma also. See, everything, all these different areas which he talked about, which we all go through, right? Action we do, doers we are, knowledge we need, resolve we must have, and we do all of it for the pleasure, the happiness. So he says, just know the whole scheme over here. Only then you will raise yourself to those higher levels. Okay?
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, he has really painted a beautiful a picture for us of our life. Certain areas, maybe we are predominantly Rajasic. In certain area, we could be Sattvic also. In certain areas, Tamasic. So we need to change all of it to become predominantly Sattvic. And ultimately, in those moments of our meditation, rise above the Sattvika also. That's what transcendental really means. See, Atma is not Sattvic, Rajasic or Tamasic. It's part of God, which is beyond these layers. But in our waking hours, we got to be predominantly Sattvic in order to enjoy that above Sattvika in our meditations.
Yes.
So this way we have the knowledge. Through Gita, we get the knowledge. Then ultimately we got to reduce the gap between the knowing and the doing. So now we know that fear is a tamasic. Sticking to the fear is very tamasic. There's a resolve. So now we got to do something about it. And again, doing is not only physical, it's a mental also. It's a verbal also. So at all three levels of our personality, we got to work on.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. When we know that God is with us, why worry? Definitely do your duty though. He's not saying that don't do your duty. Our dharma is to do our duty. Right now during this COVID, our duty is to wash our hands. Make sure we are not in big gatherings. Whenever we go out, put the mask on. Those are our duties. But doing that, if we stay afraid, that's not good. Do what needs to be done and then stay fearless.
Oh God, please. कोई तो नहीं हो रहा.
Raj Mittal has a question.
Yes, Raj.
Namaskar, Hershji.
Namaskar.
My question is like, if you can comment on Gita by itself as a marg for mukti.
Yeah, Gita really teaches us. So see, last chapter, if you look at it, Moksha, Sanyas, that is about mukti. Because you don't even have a desire for mukti anymore, because you are mukta. See, just like when you are sleeping, you don't have a desire to sleep. Got it? So when you are sleeping, still you want to get up and you want to see whether you are asleep or not. You are not sleeping. So mukti is when you don't even have a desire. So that's a moksha, sannyas. And that's exactly where Lord Krishna has taken us. Theoretically at least. And he summarized it. He said, no matter what you are doing, do it for me. Let go of the I, me, and mine. Whatever you are doing doesn't matter for me, because I am everywhere. I am in everything. Everything is enveloping me. So it's very easy. He is in the floor also if I'm sweeping the floor. He is in the patient also if you are looking at a patient, you are taking care of the patient. He is in the children also, he is in the parents also. He is everywhere. So if we can just make this as our attitude, more and more, first with the effort, then it becomes effortlessly. God is everywhere. Okay, so that's why Gita is it's a very practical scripture. Step by step, he's telling us how to attain the highest purpose of life. That's why they say, if you have studied Bhagavad Gita, understood it, practicing it, you really don't need to study any other scripture.
Hersh, it would be good if you summarize
This is it.
all the steps
Because this,
we have done to reach this moksha.
yeah, this is like a summary of all the scriptures. Sure, I mean, scholars, they like to study more. Students like us also, we enjoy studying other scriptures too. But this has everything. Everything. What to do? It's a textbook. For a person who wants to enjoy this also, for a person who wants to attain the highest purpose also. See, that's why but what do we read in that Sarvopanishado Gava, Dogada Gopal Nandana, Sarvopanishad. So all the Upanishads, and Upanishads are called Vedanta. After the end of the Vedas, those are called Upanishads. That means the Sar, the essence of all the Vedas are in the Upanishads. And over here we sing that all the Upanishads are in this Bhagavad Gita. Essence of all the Upanishads. Okay?
So Nirja has,
Anybody else?
yes, Nirja has a question.
Yes, Nirja. Go ahead, Nirja. Unmute
Actually,
yourself.
Namaskar, my question got answered.
Oh, got answered? Okay.
Yeah,
Fine.
it was
Good.
about the 5 things needed for the accomplishment of a work.
Yeah, this is very, very practical, but I think most of the authors, they just really confuse us. But if you go back to the original Sanskrit terms, it's very easy to understand. See, those 5 things, remember I told you, which verse is this? Adhishtanam, this is verse number 14. Adhishtanam, Karta, Karan, Cheshtha, and Devam. 5 things. So when we keep these 5, remember these 5, they are the cause of success or failure of any action, then we don't become arrogant. Otherwise, during success, we become arrogant. During failure, we become depressed. There's always these 5 reasons. That's what Lord Krishna is telling us. Okay?
Thank you,
This
Hersh.
mark it, remember this verse. I think this is a key, because otherwise this ego has been controlling us from countless lives. We don't know where did it really start. So in order to really have a control over this ego, because we are not the ego is just a faculty which we have. We don't want to be controlled by the ego. We want to make sure that we understand what this ego is. Okay? Anybody else?
Thank you, Hershey. Thank you.
Yes,
Archie, the
definitely.
last
We will
40
just...
verses, there's something given at the end of the book. Those 40 verses are picked by the author.
Yeah, those are just picked by the author. That is called a Gita Chalisa. So if somebody wants to recite these on a daily basis also, you can do it. In fact, I was thinking about one of these Fridays, we can just sing those together, just 40 verses. We'll sing the Sanskrit, and one by one, everybody will take turn, read the English translation. It will take half an hour to do it, half an hour, 30 minutes, 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. Just like we did the bhajan the other day, we'll do the Gita Chalisa.
Yep.
Right? Some Friday, we'll let you know. So because once a month, I'm going to do that, either bhajans or this Gita Chalisa. Something different to do on Zoom, why not?
Yes.
Right? So keep ourselves fully engrossed in these scriptures, right?
Thank you.
So, well, anyway, thank you very much. If you don't have any question, let's do the Purnamada, the Shanti Pata. Om Purnamada, Purnamidam, Purnat, Purnamudachyate, Purnasya, Purnamadaya, Purnameva Visheshyate. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om. So again, next week, this class will be at 10:30. So sorry about the people from the West Coast. You'll have to get up little early, but you said that you get up early anyway, right? Yeah, just get up at the 10:30, that's fine. And then we'll just go from there. And you will enjoy that. Once we start Vivek Chudamani, you will like that too.
I can't wait.
Yeah, just keep coming. You'll see that. And then Sundays also, it's 10:30 if you want to do the Bhagavad Gita. There, just a little bit more detail I go into. Okay.
Thank you, Auntie.
I'll like better. Missed you last week.
Yes, I'm so sorry. It was
That's
crazy.
okay. I know. It's we got to balance life, other life, outer life also with this, right? But I'm glad
Yes.
you came.
Yes, thank you.
Good. So
Harshji, is the time every Saturday 10:30 now?
starting from next week 10:30, because this will I'm combining the second and the third class. So
Okay.
so it will be 10:30 to 11:30, the Bhagavad Gita. And so first class is for the kids, that is 10 to 10:30, then 10 to 11:30.
ठीक है.
That will simplify also. Every day we have a 10:30 class. So easy to remember. And then I'm done and you are done also before lunch. Chicago people before lunch. So, okay. Yeah, that's the whole idea, just to keep it same every day.
Everybody enjoy your day. Love you, Guruji.
Yeah, love you too. You take care.
I have a message for Kim. Is Kim
Okay.
there?
Yeah, Kim is still there.
But just 1 second. Sorry, I see that Poonam has a question for Hershji.
Yes, Poonam.
Yeah, hi, Vasi. So I had a question. You were saying, I think it was in the beginning of the class, that you do prayers or meditation or whatever without any expectations of getting the fruit from it. So I understand, like, when we do Aarti, okay, I just do Aarti without any expectations because that's something I should do. Or if you're doing meditation, like bhakti meditation, yeah, you just do dhyan mein, you sit in dhyan to sit in dhyan. But then if I do meditation for just, if I'm stressed out or just end of the day, just need to relax, and I will just do some kind of guided meditation. But then I'm expecting, right? So I'm not just, I'm expecting to just calm down and relax. So then the expectation is kind of attached to that kind of meditation, right?
Yeah.
So does that make sense?
Yeah, you see, once in a while, it's okay to do that kind of a meditation. Or once in a while, if we are distressed and we are asking God, that's okay too. But majority of our meditations and our prayers should not be about some kind of a fruit. Okay, it doesn't mean that fruit doesn't come. See, the meditation when we do, you will be stress-free if you are meditating properly. You will be relaxed. Mind will be relaxed. That happens without even you asking for it. Okay, so it's okay once in a while if you need to ask. It's better to ask God than anybody else. But most of our prayers should not be about the fruit. So we got to just make a change in our own mind.
Yeah, so I understand like the Aarti aspect, I don't pray to like, oh, do this for me or get me this, get me that, or, have the kids be healthy, blah, blah, blah. So I never attach any want or a purpose for praying.
Yeah.
But then I just, after you said that, I felt, okay, sometimes I do sit and meditate because I just want to calm down. So then that expectation is attached for my intention of doing meditation.
Yeah, just do the meditation because it's your duty to do the meditation. And then relaxation will come automatically. That is the outcome of a meditation, the relaxation. So most of our actions should be based upon, it's my duty to do it. See, whether we do the arti, the puja, or whether we do the charity work or the seva, or give away part of our money also, no matter what we do, we should do it. That is my duty to do it. It's my duty to do it. Then it's a sattvic. I'm going to summarize all of this, have a chart made and give it to Kim. So maybe Kim, you can put it on our website. Because sometimes there's a lot of information in the last 3 chapters. There's a lot of information about Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic. So I'm going to give you that. So what is a Sattvic, Rajasic, Tamasic? Action, pleasure, knowledge, right? Fortitude. So all of that in a chart. That way we can look at it. Hey, my knowledge, does it really fall in that category, Sattvic or not? Okay, so I'll just work on that and give it to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mosi. And
Okay,
thanks, Kim, for all the great emails that you're sending.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
kids
she
class.
does a lot
Yeah,
of
it's
work.
very nice. Yeah, it's just been really pretty. I could tell all the effort you're putting in. So I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. It's fun for me. Thank you.
Yani, she is doing a great work. So Kim, you can just send a message that from next week, these 2 classes, still the link is the same, but we'll just have 2 classes. So send the message in case somebody did not come today and they need to
Yes,
know.
yes. I will ask Maniji to send the message because he has the whole email list.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see. Because you have,
I only have the Saturday classes.
oh, you have only the Saturday class. Okay, yeah, he should do that.
And Hersh, sorry, Jonathan has a question also.
Yes, Jonathan.
I think I've asked similar questions before, but about natural versus unnatural work. Can you describe what or give an example of what is a natural work for somebody versus unnatural? And in the context of earlier in the chapter, they were talking about trying to detach yourself from aversions and just doing the work regardless of whether you gain pleasure or find aversion through it. So how do my natural inclination would be things that give me pleasure are more natural for me, but that doesn't really seem to gel with what the Gita is saying.
Okay, all right. It's not that we should be, we should not like what we are doing. We can like what we are doing. And natural really means what comes naturally to us, because we are born with certain sanskaras. That is natural to us. That is like we are born with certain desires, certain vasanas with. And then we are born into the environment. Sometimes where we are born, by looking at somebody else, we want to copy that person. That is unnatural. Then your original vasanas, you are not cleaning. It is already there. But you are adopting something else. You think that is better. Like personally, I was born in an ashram, teaching yoga, practicing yoga, very natural to me. But if I would have thought, it's not, see, these days it has become popular, but back then it was not. If I would have said, instead of yoga, I should really do the modeling. That was not natural for me. In fact, back then, let me tell you, Jonathan, when I was a teenager, being an air hostess stewardess was a glamorous thing. And somebody, my even older brother, he told my parents that Hersh, because I was tallest in the family and all that, they thought that that would be a good thing for me to do. That would have been very unnatural. So born with and born into. Born with is natural, born into, you just accidentally or without paying attention, you absorb that. Or somebody does not have the inclination to sing, right? Roaming around with the singers and want to sing is really absorbing new tendencies and complicating and making a delay in that ultimate, achieving that ultimate purpose. Okay, so we got to, in order to really know what our natural thing to do is, we need to sit back and be a watcher a little bit. It doesn't come that easily to all of us. We need to sit back. We are here to wash the old impressions. Something like to do or not like to do. Who is deciding it? Sometimes we decide it based upon what society is saying. What is fashionable, what is not fashionable. We don't like to do things which are sometimes painful to our body, but it's good to do. So that's where Lord Krishna is coming from. Okay, so it's definitely a very subtle, all of this to understand also and to ultimately implement also. It's not very cut black and dry, black and white. It's like some gray areas in there. So that's why subtlety of the mind is needed. Okay. So we should not be a copycat. We should just look at it. Hey, what am I doing? An ultimate test is, am I calmer than before? Does it feel right or not? Is it giving me that feeling of oneness with all and oneness with God or not? That is the test. Okay, the minute we think I'm better than others, we are moving away from that. If it's taking us to that, no matter what work we do, where we are, if we are feeling one with others, that is something. Okay, so just think it through. We can even discuss more later on, but just this is in a nutshell, that's what Lord Krishna is talking about.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and you will say that when we study Vivek Chudamani, all these things will even further become clear, because the same thing with different examples, different analogies, he's going to explain to us. Because Bhagavad Gita was written way before then Vivek Chudamani came. So it's a little simpler Sanskrit and more analogies in that book. Okay.
All right, thank you.
So what time you're gonna be coming, Kim?